Second.
To adopt the agenda as recommended by the superintendent with the removal of the educational services item of Scott Hubert. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carries 3-0. Thank you. Do you have any citizen comments? And Mr. Bishop, for the instructional support recommendations, who's doing that?
Just point of order, can we do our pledge?
Oh, sorry, thank you.
That's
Sorry.
It's Miss Bryant's.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll go back to the pledge.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Mr. Bishop.
Good morning. I'd ask for the board's approval of the support staff and instructional staff recommendations as outlined on the goldenrod.
I move that we approve the instructional and support recommendations as outlined on the goldenrod.
It's been moved by Mr. Kennedy, second by Ms. Bryant, to approve the support and instructional recommendations outlined in the goldenrod. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Attorney, legal matters?
None.
Nothing? You said that so definitively. Is there any other business come before the board, Mr. Kennedy?
No, just to let the board know that on Thursday, FSBA's long-range planning committee is going to be meeting downstairs conference room. You're welcome to stop by and say hello. If you're interested, we'll be starting at 1 p.m. And I appreciate everyone here and the district's hosting them again.
And who from SBA will be here?
The President, Jane Goodwin, could not be here, but our President-elect, Chris Patrico, will be here because she chairs that committee. I'll be there, Andrea Messina, the Executive Director of Florida School Board Association, as well as Jerry Taylor, our immediate past President of FSBA, as well as the Treasurer of FSBA, and then 2 at-large members, and I forget their names at the moment, but so there's, I think, 7 of us in total, and we'll be looking at future plans, for FSBA. We'll probably review. Ms. Bryant was on our board of directors meeting. We'll probably be just tuning up a couple of pieces of the redistricting, but that seems to be all in order. There is the recommendation right now is that Citrus is one of only 2 districts that would get rezoned, and the only thing that would happen, which I think really benefits us, is we would lose Marion County as our partner and pick up Levy County. Was that, I think?
Levy or Pasco?
No, Levy. Pasco becomes their own seat because they're big enough.
Okay.
So, to me, in a lot of ways, it was.
I like Levy County.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I thought Levy, for Marion was good. Marion will end up going with, I think, Sumter County. So something like that.
Well, it seems to me that this meeting here again, that's saying something positive about us, am I?
Citrus County is on the map.
I appreciate that very much, thank you.
No, thank you.
Ms. Bryant, did you have something you want to add?
I do not.
Okay. Well, then what we'll do is adjourn this portion of the meeting, special meeting, and we'll go into open up the workshop topics. And the first workshop topic will be Mr. Bishop. I don't know if you're doing it or not, Chuck.
I'll just start it, and
Okay.
Ms. Humball may want to.
Chime in.
Yes. So we have 3 today, and 1 being repealed because it's being replaced. The first one is an update to policy 2.70, prohibiting discrimination, including sexual and other forms of harassment. This one was reviewed by the Policy and Forms Committee in November. And Ms. Powers did contact me about some typographical errors, and then we will take care of those before it's advertised. And then on page 2 of 18, we will include the contact information for those 4 items under item E. And I'll just open it up for any questions by the board or discussion.
Policy and Forms, though, you said already has vetted this, and
Yes, they didn't
staff's
really
good
have
on
a,
this. I mean, I should say staff administration's good on this.
yes, this came from NEFAC, and then we did discuss it, and no significant changes were made to it.
I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
And the next one is 5.321.
Yes. 5.321 is bullying and harassment. This one is an update to our current policy. It was reviewed by Policy and Forms in November. And be glad to answer any questions if you have them. Again, this was recommended by NEFAC and no significant changes were made.
I'm not gonna go reach it, so I don't have anything to add.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Thank you.
New policy 5.325, dating violence and abuse.
Okay, this one is a new policy that replaces our current policy is being repealed because it's an extensive rewrite, and we wanted to just not make it any more confusing than necessary, but this was reviewed by the Policy and Forms Committee in November, and the rewrite was recommended by NEFAC. Again, no major changes were made to it. It includes, everything that was in our original policy and then some. But the title is changing from teen dating violence or abuse to dating violence and abuse.
Do we know if this correlates with the information? I don't know, is this covered in HOPE now? I forget the class that, that we have where the SRO would typically come in.
Focus?
Focus. In the high school level and the middle school level. I know some of this was typically, there you go, kid, I'm sorry. Some of this was like, it used to be kind of part of that curriculum.
Right.
I guess my only thing would be is to make sure that that they are in sync with each other as far as the policy, or if there's something we need to do to adjust that at all.
Okay. Yeah, it's,
And you all would be able to do that, to know, I just would bring it up.
It's, and it's in grades 7 through 12
Right.
that they do address in the HOPE classes, and then in the PE classes, that component. But primarily the signs and the prevention are the two biggest things that they want them to focus on. And also Aspire gets into a little bit
That's
of that
what I
with the, safe relationships and all of that.
And then code of conduct, if there's anything in here that seems appropriate to go into the code of conduct, since now that we've got this as a new policy, that may be just something for the next go around.
Yeah, and I haven't brought that to you all yet, because we're not printing them, so we have, a little bit more time to really look at those. But I've got that on my list to speak to Mr. Bradshaw about that, and then the additions that were made to the bullying and harassment.
Thank
that are in the code. You're welcome.
That's all pretty much in the repeal of the current policy,
Okay.
of number 4.
Everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We removed, next one, the education services, still virtual, Citrus virtual update from Mr. Hebert. So next, we're going on to finance with, Mr. Mullins' name's on it.
Miss Wilson's on her way.
Ms. Wilson,
Okay.
what is Mr. Mullins? There she is.
All right. Hello. Give me a second here.
And Ms. Wilson, you're gonna, cover the budget of the 5-year capital?
Yes.
Okay.
It should be right on the, is it, I think
Oh,
that's it.
yes, wait a minute.
Are you ready for you, whenever you're ready?
Well, I thought it was.
It is right here.
Is there anyone from technology out there that can come in?
It's a very easy password too.
It may have expired.
Okay.
Mr. Bonilla, do you not have another mask? Do you, I mean, I had this, image that there's like 46 different,
I just do it for you.
Stop.
Yeah, just log on as myself.
And Mr. Dixon, you're gonna return to the commissioners meeting?
Myself, and I'm okay. Half a house, half plus house today?
Good thing I showed up.
Yeah.
we have a
We have a quorum.
I was gonna say, the three of us have made it work before in the past many times.
Yeah.
We have no problem doing it.
Yes, Here's it's locked out now. Can I log in as myself?
I think technically you can.
Just don't know if it'll go up there for you. And I have to remember my password.
Yeah, I can never. There you go.
Thank you. Now he's gonna come in and then it'll be.
Just don't forget to log out.
Yes. I just went ahead and logged in as myself.
I just changed the password to the boardroom login. For some reason it must have expired. It shouldn't expire.
Okay, well now it's saying to log me in.
It'll take a moment. It's registering you as a new user.
See, I went ahead and logged in as myself. Sorry.
That's why you shouldn't do PowerPoint presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw. Do we need to?
Is that your legal opinion?
Yes.
Okay.
Why
Well,
create a
it's
public
opinions
record
legal.
when you don't need to?
Hi. Never mind, made it worse, huh?
Now, it won't take so long next time.
Sorry. You guys need for a second. I'm just gonna get you up there.
No, that's okay. And then we can make that up there. Some of these boardroom password expires, so this needs to be set in that as well. It just- Hey, there's the worst things that we can be doing. We're good.
We all get together and go over the commissioners.
Just 2 seconds.
Nah,
There you
We've
go.
got
we've
Chuck,
done that.
we've got Chuck.
That's right.
Fran, do you know if there is a copy of the student progression plan up in the office? I'll need a couple of copies of a couple of pages they're asking me to. Good.
There we go.
Here we go. Right. And I mushed this all into one
You mushed it, did
PowerPoint.
you?
I mushed it all together.
Like that.
So, there we go. Okay, so, we're gonna start with some CARES Act, let's see, information. So, the CARES Act provides assistance for state, local, and tribal governments, to navigate the impact that COVID-19 has had. All right. So our first round that we received was the ESSER funds. This was the 4.2, we'll just say 4.2 rounded, that we received last summer. And quickly put something together, the state changed it, and then now they've changed it some more. This is what we have spent it on, so I broke that down for you. We have, it went way, what happened to my other, there we go. This
It looks
is,
like, by the way, that we spent about 1.5 million. Oh, no, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
salaries, I missed that.
yeah,
There's
so
the- there's the big
we've
number.
spent, this will give you the whole total. This is what is budgeted and spent. We have about $1 million left to expense out. That should be expensed out by June 30, so that we can then start using the ESSER 2 and have a nice clean line. It's very difficult when those crossover years, so,
Have we spent it though, we just haven't gotten the approvals and those things, or?
we've spent a lot of it, and then we're sending a budget amendment up to try and spend out the rest for what
You've allocated the
we
rest
want
of
to
it.
do. Yes, everything's committed. So, the main portion, of course, is the student instruction. This is, our extra duty for the teachers that are teaching on planning. This was including handing out iPads. This is, any preparation they've had to do, the salaries for Deb Dumas and Bart Adams that are administering the virtual curriculum, and then they have a couple support positions in there that are helping with that. So for a big portion of it, about 1.5 is salary and benefits just for all that. That can be tied directly to student instruction and the curriculum development that we've had to do to facilitate that virtual learning and,
closing those achievement gaps that we see. About $750,000 we spent on software, and the curriculum that is things like Canvas, FLVS, that was curriculum and software. We purchased Zoom, we were able to purchase Securely, we were able to purchase some technology software to protect our systems from, outside sources. We're also going to be putting Performance Matters in there, as that'll test students and track this test scores for those type things. We're also in the amendment putting in things like PD360, ERO, and ASOP, as those are all softwares that we can use to track employee absences, but employee professional development and that type of thing. So that's another piece. And those will help actually the capital fund, because those pay for a lot of those enterprise softwares. So we did have to allocate $30,000 to the charter school, and basically they receive that because they receive part of FLVS, they receive part of Canvas, they've received supplies and instruction and things like that. So they've kind of, as another cost center in our school district, but we had to make sure they received at least $30,000, and we've contributed a lot more than $30,000 towards them out of this fund. Another part is the private schools, $145,000. That changed. It was a larger amount, and then they changed how they allocated it, and then they changed that again. I think we've gone round and round. Kiera Banstra has been wonderful, and her and Patty have worked very hard together to figure out how much these schools are supposed to get. We actually just received a couple cases of Chromebooks. One of the schools got, I think, the Lutheran school, and we're getting those out to them, but just finally getting down to actually how much we are supposed to give them. And then $200,000 is indirect cost, and that helps cover, the salaries of all this additional payroll that's on there, purchasing, things like that, administrative costs. And this is one of the few grants that we're actually able to do indirect costs, and they have capped it at 5%, even though our indirect cost rate for the other grants is higher. They capped this at 5%.
On the charter school and the private school, is it on a per pupil basis?
Yes, it's the charter school's based on how we allocate the FEFP to them, which is like 0.7516% for this year, and then the private schools was based on their student population versus our student population, and it went back and forth with the different numbers and how the state, there was a court case, and it changed how the allocation went, and Kiera Banstra, she kind of handled allocating all that. It's kind of how they allocate Title I, same formula type.
And then
I guess.
do we have to ensure that it meets the requirements for?
Yes, they gave us basically a list of what they wanted to spend the money on. We incorporated that into our grant. We actually are doing the purchasing for them. We are tagging those items. Those items will, if the school happened to close, those items would come back to the Citrus County School District, as with all the federal funding that we get when we buy stuff for private schools. It belongs back to the school district if something happens to that school. And we had, I think it was 4 schools participate. We had Solid Rock, there's 2, St. Paul's and Pope John Paul, and then the Inverness Christian Academy. Those were the 4 that participated. We offered it to all the private schools in the county, but only those are the 4 that decided to participate. So for the rest of the ESSER funds, we had about $200,000 that was used for professional development, and that was the days we used the consultant for Canvas, but also the days we used for preparing the teachers to virtual learn and use Canvas, and other professional developments we've done a little bit here and there. Technology salaries, that's kind of explanatory. We had to get extra duty overtime for the people to get when we went into the pandemic, my whole staff went home, they all needed computers, teachers needed computers, that type of salaries was in there. We spent about $400,000 on supplies for employees, masks, sanitizer, shields, and about $650,000 for the students for those same items. And then maintenance has spent about $275,000. That's mostly salaries for overtime for cleaning and sanitizing rooms where we've had infected individuals. Also, they were able to purchase some equipment, foggers, and different items that Mr. Stokes has felt was valuable to combat the virus. So that's kind of a little wrap up of what we've spent that first round of ESSER on. And I did not actually write down the exact total of ESSER 2 funds. We did put that into the share file yesterday. That came down, it's $15.1 million-ish that they are giving us. It's supposed to be for the next 2 years, but there's also ESSER 3 funds that are in the works, and we don't know any figures or amounts for those. And
How is the restrictions? Do we know if they're gonna be?
there was no budget narrative. So it was basically a signed piece of paper saying we would accept it, but, there were lots of notations, like please be conscientious. There was a list of things we couldn't buy: alcohol, party supplies,
Darn it all.
traveling. There was a list like that's standard that comes with the grants, but pretty much they just encouraged us to spend it on non-reoccurring costs that we are seeing due to the virus. We've been meeting with district administrators, trying to close that achievement gap that we're going to see in the younger students, especially the kindergartners that are coming in, upgrading some of the HVAC systems for air quality management, things like that is what they're encouraging us to spend it on, so.
We really need to get a picture of what's going to be reduced from the state in the budget.
Correct.
Before we can make a commitment on.
And that's really where I'm going with it, because that's my concern. If it's non-recurring
Right, it's
costs
non-recurring.
specific to the pandemic, and then they're going to reduce funding to us in the general budget, that's creating to us the worst case scenario, because we can't supplement or supplant where we need to then if they do that. And I know it's early for all of us, but I do think if there's anything we can, as a board, help articulate that message to our state leaders, we need to, we need to get ahead of that as much as we can in that conversation. And because we've all seen the memos, we're being warned that there'll be a temporary, I think is how they're referring to it, adjustment in the budget to, because basically we're getting all this money. But if we can't spend that money on the things that you are defunding in other areas or reducing the funding in other areas, that's going to be a real challenge. Unless they give us the latitude to come back and use it for that.
The governor's budget, if the governor's budget went through and we got the $15 million, then we could go ahead and start planning. But we don't know that that's going to happen. And like you said, there's been all kind of warnings that be careful how you allocate this money, because you could see a reduction in the other money that you're getting.
And I know this is maybe not a perfect analogy, and Mr. Bishop can explain it better if it needs to be, but okay, an HVAC improvement is great, but if we have to replace, let's say, a roof, before we can do those things or other capital improvements, having the money to do that's not going to help us if we have other more critical needs for a school or a situation. So that's just, I'm so grateful that you all are where you are, and I know that our capital budgets, we're realizing them, we understand them, but this money may or may not be as helpful to us if it comes with so many strings attached.
Right. Some of the other funds that we've received under the ESSER, which is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, we have received the Best High Quality Curriculum Rating, which was $107,000, And it was to target K through 3 students specifically in reading deficiencies. We are purchasing Lexia site licenses and the professional development for the teachers to use those. We also just got approved for the instructional continuity plan, which is to support the development of our instructional continuity plan. And basically it's a plan to develop our reopening plan again. And so this will be fees for the travel, the fees to attend the conference. Apparently the state's gonna put on a conference on how to develop your plan, so this will be the fees. This is very specific, these are very specific grants here, we don't have a lot of latitude.
Do we yet know what the state's definition of a instructional continuity plan means? Okay, just want to make sure, because I know all of us probably have different thoughts of what they could be meaning, so.
The other one that we received under the ESSER as of right now is the data informed scientist, and this is a position that is specific to analyze the data to improve our school and student outcomes as we navigate the pandemic. Right, then the other,
Where would that person come from?
They're in research and accountability
Within this
in our
business?
department. Yes.
But are they allowing us to fund the current position?
No, it's an additional position.
It'll be an added one.
It was,
and it's funded through,
Al Balk is actually in the position.
Okay.
we moved him into
We've
that.
kind of moved
Okay.
him into the position, and we have other people helping with what he was doing, so he's working on that.
So the way the money works out, it'll pay for that position, I think, through
Through
the
the
first
middle-
9 weeks of
first 9
next
weeks
year.
of next year.
And
yes.
then we would either have to eliminate the position, absorb it some other way, so.
Unless the new
Unless-
funds would allow or require it. Okay.
We're not that far yet on that.
No, I get.
So I feel like we're a little further ahead than we were last year though, because it was down to the wire last year and getting all this in for the grant. So the other big pot of money we received last year was the governor's emergency education relief, and the summer recovery was the first piece. And as you can see, that was $393,118, and the private schools, only one participated in that, and that is the Pope John Paul, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that one. So they received an additional instructional unit that they were able to fund. I think it was like a 6-hour position they were able to, or a 4-hour position. They kept them there all day for the first, for part of the summer, and then the rest of the first 9 weeks or something. So, so for summer recovery, you really don't realize just to do summer school you need all these other services, but a good portion of it went to the teachers in the classroom aides, some of them virtual. We did meet the statute, we met the plan because we had brick and mortar, so we were able to move all the virtual summer school we did into the grant. We also provided guidance counselors, clinic aides. They had to develop the curriculum for summer. There was professional development for the teachers, transportation for the students. We had to provide school resource officers at these sites. We also had to purchase curriculum. We had to provide the therapy services for the students out at Crest, and then the sanitation supplies to keep, the students safe from the virus. And
This
the
was not all summer
instructors.
though, if I recall. This was only a portion of the summer, right?
We did face-to-face, we did something all summer, but just the portion of face-to-face, yes, was towards the end of the summer.
After
But
July.
the governor's emergency funds only paid for the face-to-face, or did it pay for the whole summer piece?
It paid for the whole summer piece because we met the,
Because we did the face.
Because we
we
did
did
the other
face-to-face, we were able to, which helped the general fund some at the end of last
And
year.
I guess really I was saying that's remarkable we were able to provide that level of service with that affordability, because that actually seems very affordable
Yes, we had
for
some,
the crisis, during a pandemic in particular.
we had the face-to-face at 3 of the schools plus Crest, so, one on each side of the county and one in the middle, so. Under the governor's emergency education relief, we also received, WTC received rapid credentialing, and this was to beef up our technical certification programs to get people into the workforce as quickly as possible. And they have pretty much almost spent all that money. They're coming to the very end of spending it. The cleaning and sanitation grant, we had to allocate to the charter and the private schools, and the rest had to be distributed equally amongst the rest of our sites, which I find interesting because, you know, Floral City received the same amount as Citrus or Lecanto High School. This one also did include Pace and Renaissance and the DJJ facility. And a little note, this morning Patty ran in and said they have taken this one off. She went to go draw down the rest of the money this morning, and it was removed from the cash advance. So we're eagerly awaiting to see if it opens back up because we've spent the money. And she went to draw it down today, and it's out of the queue to draw down. So we have no more information. We contacted our DOE guy, and he said, I don't know, I was just told to remove it. So if they don't give it back
Sounds
to
like
us.
schools when you guys come and do the same thing. You swoop in right before summer.
So the cost will have to be moved to ESSER if they don't reopen that money for us to draw down. So it wasn't a whole lot. We had spent over half of it. So that was just interesting as she ran in this morning, and I was like, wait, I need to review my PowerPoint. She goes, wait, I have to tell you this. So it's a good thing we've been spending the ESSER down because we've been worried they're going to do that to us. The building K-12 CTE infrastructure, this was Ms. Stanley. She purchased some equipment for, I think, childhood development and digital design and drafting classes. So I think they got some BenQs and some other equipment in those classrooms. And then the final one is the civic book list, and this was from the Florida's Best ELA Standards list. They gave us $24,000 to purchase from that list. We had a couple flow-through grants, and this would be money that went to these agencies, and then they're flowing through to us from the CARES money. Early Learning Coalition, we've gotten 3 or 4 distributions from Rising K. There was like phase 1, phase 2, phase 4. They skipped a couple, but total we've received $130,740, and this was to provide kindergarten students we put some extra aids in there to help them out to, breach those learning gaps that we're going to see and we are seeing from them. Then the Departments of Children and Families, this is a small little $14,000 for telehealth and mental health. This is going through student services, and they are creating an integrated telecommunication technology platform used by network services for the services provided by children and families, and that should have been capitalized. I apologize on that. All right, our last set of funds that I'm going to talk about is the HERF. This is the higher education. This is basically WTC's portion of the CARES Act money. The phase 1 they received last year, they were able to distribute financial aid to students. When we were getting our first round of money, and as people over 18, we were receiving that first stimulus funding, we were able to provide our students with some extra financial aid. They've now given us another phase for that, and WTC is working on distributing some extra money to the students right now. And I think that's based on who receives Pell and who doesn't. This is all drawn down out of the same system, the G5 as the Pell. Then they received, in phase 1, they received an equal portion to the tuition part for institution expenses. Same thing like for us, for things that were above and beyond due to the virus, whether it's supplies, whether it's building plastic shields, adding other positions to help facilitate learning during the pandemic. Then phase 1 received another part. The schools who did not receive $500,000, they gave everybody enough, so everybody got $500,000 minimum. So that's why there's this little $96,000 portion that's for the institution. And then in the phase 2 portion, which they just received, they're getting over $500,000, and I know they're going to be using some of this for the more tuition for students. So they're trying to, put that money back into the students, and then they'll use it for their phase 2 is like our ESSER 2. So theirs is just HERF and ours is ESSER.
On the student tuition, is it income-based, the way it's distributed?
I think it gets based on Pell, who receives Pell and who's eligible for Pell, which is a good portion of their students. There's a lot of checks being distributed, so.
Are these checks going directly to the students?
Yes,
So it's similar to then like the colleges that it's filtering down?
exactly the same,
Okay.
yes, exactly. All right, so that's all I have on our CARES funding. So do you have any questions on that? All right, I'm gonna move on to general fund. I just kind of bled this all in together. All right, so I just want to first say, I've been trying to track the legislative session. We're in the 123rd legislative session, and Mr. Kennedy's picture is right there on the website. You didn't know that?
No.
The School Board Association website.
Oh.
With somebody, I went to go check it. I'm like,
sorry.
oh, look, there's Mr. Kennedy. So they're warning us to be cautious about spending. They stated the pension is the greatest threat to the budget right now. The governor's opening speech said, by reopening Florida, we really have saved the budget and it has a more positive outlook than many other states. And according to the governor, there should be no reason to cut funding for K-12. So just so you're aware, that was his statement in there. They, of course, are going to focus on teacher salaries, AP scores, and apparently we lead the nation in school choice here in Florida. So just some little remarks that I was able to pick up from just doing a little research there. So currently, the state is not issuing a third calculation in light of the executive order to maintain the funding, and I kind of had gone over this with you a couple weeks ago. We are experiencing a little bit of FTE growth, so that shows that we should get about $449,000 more for the third calculation, but once we got the scholarship information, that some of that might be gone and to the students that are seeking education elsewhere. We also did get the add-on for our AP and IB funding, so those, we will get allocated those because you don't do a forecast based on those numbers. And always our policy 7.10, maintaining an adequate fund balance is very important to cover unforeseen events, including but not limited to revenue shortfalls in student enrollment. So, we by chance may see that this year. We may see a revenue shortfall in the state funding. We may see a shortfall in tax collection. We really don't know, but that's the main reason that we keep that fund balance in there. And 3.5 is our minimum, it's not like, oh, we're there, let's go spend the rest. We need to make sure we bank for those rainy days. So right now, here's the forecast for the end of the year. The blue column is what I'm projecting right now with the salary increases that we did in December and how expenses are going right now. Fuel is a big variable at this time because prices are going up. You see that in your personal gas tank. So we're looking at a 4.16% fund balance, and I was hoping to get, the auditors always give me a list of everybody's fund balance statewide, so maybe I'll have that by the April board meeting to show you where we stand on that.
On the fuel, do we get a price for the year, or does it change by the month or what?
We've actually talked to a broker about that, but the fee they charge on top of the port charge outweighs, you have to make a decision because it's going to be larger than what we project the price to be. Does it make sense? So you have to pay for that security, so to speak. So we have had 2 meetings with the brokers, and we don't feel at this time it's advantageous for us to do that.
So basically our bids are plus OPUS, so they charge a certain amount plus the OPUS tax and stuff. So depending on how all that fluctuates, we pay an X amount of pennies on the dollar over the amount. So what Mr. Bishop was talking about would be securing in that original amount. So as it fluctuates, unfortunately, so do our costs.
Now, your projected here, though, is not including of the governor's budget proposal, or?
This is just how we're going to
This is just where
end-
we're gonna end.
End this year, yes.
And I say that because not only do we have the issue of what the legislature's gonna do, FRS surprise is still sitting out there. They don't think it'll be as big as last year, but they do anticipate that there is gonna be another, I say FRS surprise, but really what I'm saying is adjustment, which, so that seems to be another kind of piece out there that we don't even know where that's gonna land.
Right, so here's just the graph of how our fund balance is, and we ended up, we were improving, and then if things still go as they're going, it'll see a drop. We still won't be lower than our lowest, but our expenses are much more than they used to be, back in 13 and 14 when we were low. Here's our revenue versus expenses. And of course, we always want the blue to be higher than the red. And as you can see, that doesn't always happen. And the way we're ending the year this year, it doesn't look like it will happen. So unless something unforeseen happens, this is where we stand to be. Right. The governor is the only one that's come out with his budget yet, so I broke this out for you. We did forecast a little bit down in our FTE. They are looking at our taxable property values increasing. Of course, this always adjusts in the final conference report. And then they're looking at increasing our millage by 0.001. The governor is increasing the base student allocation by $132 per student. That would be nice. Overall, in our categoricals, that would increase us by 2.5 million. If you look at the very bottom right corner, that's the differences. And of course, those numbers on the right fluctuate. Most of those are based on FTE, so depending on how those all get calculated out, that's why most of the ESE we have in the forecast a little bit down. Transportation, it has us going down a little bit, and instructional material. He does have in there to maintain the teacher salary allocation, which helps fund about half of what the raise cost us this year. So we did have to come up with the rest of that 2.5 out of our fund balance. Mental health, he's maintaining, so that's a good thing. And digital classroom, he has maintaining from last year, which was way down from where it was before, but at least it's not going away in his budget. All right. So overall, he has, let's see, an increase of $3.5 million. So if we could, as Mr. Mullen said, go forth and budget based on that, plus the CARES funding, we would be in great shape. But, this is just step one, the governor's budget. It's always the best one. Things we have to look forward to, and FRS, I should have put back in here, and I didn't, but we have to maintain that new base salary that we just awarded the teachers. We have steps for our support. Fuel costs are increasing. Cost of technology is increasing. Our raw material cost is increasing, and by that, the president put in some trade embargoes. We're having trouble getting wax and floor strippers and things like that right now because of the raw material that it takes to make those. We're looking at trash can liners, paper towels, toilet paper, things like that. Getting those raw materials, the costs are increasing. So those are things we have to budget for. You wouldn't think that toilet paper is something we have to budget for, but we do. Health insurance, we have to look at, the board match, our employees, their costs for that, what the board is going to kick in. We're going to have learning gaps in our students due to the virus, so that's going to cost us more money to close those learning gaps. And then virtual education is just something that we need to look forward to and look at and see where we stand with that. So in the budgeting process, right now, as the district departments and the schools are working on their little individual budgets, we're looking at every penny we can save the end of this year, possible CARES funding, things that we can do like that. So this is just the beginning. April starts the first push for the budget and the first HR budget, and we'll start having, you know, stronger numbers and more detailed information for you after that. So now I want to talk about the capital budget. And this is just going to be a quick overview of where we are right now. This was our 5-year work plan that we submitted, and it was in the budget book. Our beginning fund balance was $25.6 million. And our ending fund balance here was estimated to be $20 million. As of right now, we're looking at a projected ending fund balance of $27.6 million right now. So a good part of that is due to our property taxes. When our property values increase, our millage for capital does increase. It's still 1.5, which is down from the 2 mills we received. I think it's been almost 10 years now. But you know, they adjust our millage for our general fund, but they leave this the same. So when property values increase, we do receive more into our capital fund. We have seen a loss in interest. Normally we receive a couple hundred, almost $500,000 in interest over the year with the capital fund. I don't think we've broke 100,000 this year. So that's, you know, we have more money, but we're not earning as much interest. So.
But I was just going to say that the increase, even though we have the increased property values, the net result in the millage rate was somewhat minimal.
Yes.
I want to say it was in the $100,000 range.
That's be in the general fund. Oh, for the capital
For the
fund?
capital
I
fund.
can't remember.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
thought that's what that was. But again, and I do think it's important
Yeah.
to remind, because a lot of the public doesn't understand,
Right.
when property values go up, the biggest portion for us is that general fund.
Correct.
We get adjusted on that.
Yes.
So we do not get a
Yes.
gain
Correct.
based on the increased property values.
For our
I'm
general.
thrilled in the rest of my budget, I'm sorry, my tax bill, because the county potentially can benefit from that. We'll have to roll that back based on what the legislature determines.
Exactly. So, as of February, we have collected 90% of our taxes, so we always do very well in collecting taxes, so that's a good thing. So some of the things in the capital budget as we look forward, and I broke these up, variable costs and fixed costs, just as these are the ones that are set, we're obligated, we have obligations, we have to pay these. Our bond payments up to about $3.15 million right now. We're getting ready to buy a sinking fund. By April 1st, we'll buy that. I'm very interested to see what our broker comes back with for interest rates on that, seeing what has transpired this year. Our Dell lease for our servers and our 3 Apple leases we have are at $2.1 million. Copier lease is $160,000, and that'll be coming up here in the next year or so. Our portable leases, these are still for the ones out at Citrus Springs. We did purchase the ones at Floral City. We were able to purchase those for a very reasonable rate. The ones at Citrus Springs, it's a totally different company, and it's not worth it for us to purchase them at the price that they want. Property and casualty insurance for our buildings, we're at about $2 million. Code compliance, this is to meet all of our inspections and certifications and things like that, is about $415,000 for next year. And then the salaries that we covered, that we're able to use capital funds to cover maintenance, facilities, planning and growth, code compliance salaries, we're able to cover a portion of those salaries with that. Okay, so the ones that are variable, that change from year to year, are buses, depending on how many numbers we buy. Enterprise software, it seems every year, something better, something new, something that we need to secure our system to use. Everything's going technology-based, so we have to put more money into software. Maintenance projects, facility projects, infrastructure projects, land purchases, and then our computer refresh for our staff and students, and then just technology in general, the machines and the video projectors and different types of technology that we have to buy. So those are all things that each year vary from year to year. Mr. Bishop's been meeting with all of his departments, and then we'll meet and we'll have, by the next workshop, we'll have a better 5-year work plan. This is just the, the beginning, just to lay out for you where we're at. And we'll have, a tentatively proposed 5-year work plan for you at the next workshop. So where are we now with our budget process, our budget calendar?
Before you move on, back onto capital for a second. Mr. Bishop, am I correct in understanding that our 5-year capital improvement plan, our projections, particular to impact fees, if for some reason those are not approved, if the Board of County Commission reduces what currently their the 50% that's being recommended, will we not have to go back and have some adjustments, and we'll probably have to make changes to that plan?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure that I'm understanding that correctly.
That's correct.
Okay, so the legislature, we always wait on them to finalize the conference report, and it's a later year. 1 year it's later, 1 year it's earlier, so this is a later year. Right now, the schools and departments are working on their budgets, so after spring break, I'll start reviewing the budgets. I'll be meeting with executive team and other departments if I have questions to put a budget together. Of course, we'll do an update for you at the board meeting, and then the first HR budget will come in, and we'll have a good budget, hopefully, if the final conference report comes out. That would be nice, for you at the next workshop. And then we continue to put in HR pushes as we hire people. We know how many students we're going to have next year, how many positions we're going to have. We do end up pushing that budget over 5 times. So July 1st, the property appraiser will certify the taxable value, and that will change the conference report, of course, because then the millage will change if it needs to be. We will approve to advertise the budget at the July board meeting. And then at the July workshop, we'll approve the tentative budget. And then on the September board meeting, we will approve the final budget in the millage. So that's where we are, that's where we're at, that's where we're going. Are there any questions? Okay. Thank you for being patient, and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone have any questions they want to ask? Okay, then we're on the adjourn. The meeting's adjourned.
Dan, would you make sure you send that out to the
Yes.
board, including Mr. Dodd's?
Yes. And, yeah.
Probably did that in those 2 pages.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Oh, don't put the log out.
I'm doing that.
Okay. I didn't want you to, yeah. Thank you, Buster.